Imagine coming home and finding undeniable proof that your wife's been cheating, another man's semen on her underwear. Most guys would lose it, screaming, breaking things, demanding answers. But me? I didn't blow up. I didn't even get mad. I just froze. And in that single, icy moment, I realized I needed to do something more than just confront her. I needed to unravel every twisted lie, expose every hidden truth, and make her feel the same devastation I felt. This wasn't going to be a fight, it was going to be a game. And I was going to make damn sure I was the one who won. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name's Mike, and I'm just your average guy, work, bills, and grabbing a beer with the guys whenever I get a chance. I'm 46, and I've been married to Jessica for 17 years. And let's just say, our marriage has seen some serious ups and downs. When we first got together, it felt like some kind of whirlwind romance right out of a movie, love at first sight and all that crap they sell you in those feel-good Hollywood flicks. And for a while, things were amazing. But like everything, it didn't stay that way. I'm a logistics coordinator. Not the most thrilling job in the world, but it pays the bills. Jessica. She used to be an elementary school teacher, but she quit a few years ago, saying she needed to find herself and chase her dreams, whatever that was supposed to mean. And here's the kicker, I always believed we were the couple that could handle anything. I guess that's what every fool thinks, right before reality sucker punches them. Our marriage wasn't just bumpy, it was more like a damn roller coaster. And sure, we argued. Not the full-on screaming matches, but those low-key, under-your-breath remarks that simmer for days. The kind of fights where there's no resolution, just heavy silences and doors closed a little too hard. We'd retreat into our corners like boxers, waiting for the next round to start. We even tried counseling at one point. I know what you're thinking, cliché as hell. We sat on those uncomfortable, overpriced couches, bearing our souls to some stranger who probably cared more about the check clearing than us actually fixing anything. In the end, it didn't solve squat. If anything, those sessions just piled on more bitterness and resentment, a complete waste of time and money. But hey, at least we gave it a shot. So, why didn't we just cut ties and get a divorce right then and there? The truth is, it's never that simple. 17 years of history, a network of shared friends, and that damn gut feeling of familiarity. When you've been with someone that long, even if it's not love anymore, there's something there. It's like you owe each other a little more time, one last chance to see if you can go back to how things used to be. And then there were our friends, Eddie, Paul, and Katie, our little tight-knit group. For as long as I can remember, my house was the hangout spot for all of us. I don't know why it turned out that way, it just did. We lived smack dab in the middle of everyone, so it made sense for people to drop by, crash over, and keep the party going until sunrise. Our place was the go-to spot. And honestly, I loved those moments. I cherished those people. I thought we were more than friends, we were family. But looking back, it turns out not everyone was as genuine as I'd believed. But hey, that's a truth you'll see unravel soon enough. Jessica always thrived in social settings. She was the one who lit up the room at every gathering, laughing the loudest, topping off drinks, playing the perfect hostess like she was born for it. And me? I was content just being there, basking in the energy of our home, believing it was filled with people who genuinely cared about us, about me. I can't pinpoint the exact moment when it all began to shift, when the warmth in those get-togethers turned into something I couldn't quite place. Maybe it was one of those nights when I noticed Jessica laughing a little too hard at something Ryan said, or that time I caught Eddie's gaze lingering on her a second longer than it should have. But it wasn't until that day, the day I stumbled upon the panties, that the reality of what was happening hit me with its full force. And the worst part? I never saw it coming. It's crazy how our minds can betray us. You can spend years turning a blind eye, convincing yourself that everything's okay, while deep down, some part of you senses that it's not. Maybe it's fear, denial, or just pure stupidity. But whatever it is, when the truth finally slams into you, it's like a freight train, unstoppable and brutal. So there I was, in my own bedroom, clutching Jessica's underwear and staring at undeniable proof that another man had been here, been with her. And all I could think was, how the hell did it get to this point? Look, if you're hoping for a story with a happy ending or some silver lining, you might as well stop now. Because what I'm about to lay out for you is messy, raw, and a hell of a lot darker than I ever imagined my life would be. But if you're still with me, then buckle up, this ride's just getting started. You know, there's a moment in every crumbling relationship that feels like a gut punch. It's not just a numb feeling, you start to feel hate. I'm not talking about those quick bursts of anger when she rolls her eyes during an argument. I'm talking about the moment when it hits you that you'd rather die than spend another miserable second breathing the same air as her. For me, that day came out of nowhere, on what was supposed to be just an ordinary Tuesday. I had a plan, head to work, wade through the endless crap I deal with daily, and then come home, park myself on the couch, and pretend Jessica and I were still putting in an effort to fix whatever was left of our marriage. But, like most things in life, plans fell apart. The office server crashed or something, I'm no tech guy, leaving us with zero to do. My boss gave the all-clear to pack up and head home early, so I ended up driving back in the middle of the day, which is something I almost never do. And then I saw it, Eddie's car. Now, let me be clear, seeing his car in my driveway wasn't all that surprising. Eddie was practically a fixture at our place, hanging out so often it was like he had a second home here. We even used to joke about it. And since my house was always the go-to hangout spot for our crew, it wasn't strange for him to drop by even if I wasn't around. But that day, something about it felt off. And then I made a mistake. As I rolled up to the garage, my hand jerked, and I accidentally tapped the horn. Stupid, right? But that tiny honk was like a damn alarm bell, and I knew, right then, that everything was wrong. That cozy, familiar feeling of home was gone, replaced by this sharp, electric tension. It was like even the house knew I shouldn't be here, like I was the outsider, trespassing on my own property. The front door swung open, and there was Eddie, standing there like a deer caught in the headlights. I tried to keep it cool, forcing a smile, because honestly, what was I supposed to do? Start yelling just because my buddy looked a bit off? But there was something in his eyes, something like panic, hidden behind that awkward grin of his. Hey, man, I said, trying to keep my voice casual, though inside, every fiber of me was screaming that something wasn't right. Everything okay? Yeah, all good, he stammered, glancing nervously down the hall like someone was about to show up. He was fidgeting, looking like he couldn't wait to get out of there. Every second he stood there made the air between us feel thicker, heavier. And then she appeared, Jessica. She wasn't dressed like she'd been lounging around. Her hair was tousled just enough to look suspicious, not quite messy but not neat either. Her face was flushed, and she had on this little silk robe, barely tied up like she'd just thrown it on in a hurry. Oh, hey. I didn't know you'd be home so early, she said, her voice just a bit too high-pitched, too cheerful, the kind of tone people use when they're trying way too hard to act normal. She gave me this forced smile, one that didn't even reach her eyes. I stayed silent, just looking at her, then at Eddie, and back at her. The two of them stood there, pretending to act casual, but I could feel the lie thickening the air around us like fog. And I was choking on it. So what did I do? Did I blow up on them right there? Start yelling, demanding answers? No. I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Instead, I calmly said, I'm just going to change clothes, get comfortable. Then I walked past them, heading straight for the bedroom. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew something was off, and I needed solid proof, the kind of proof that hits you square in the face like a hammer. I started searching, drawers, the closet, anywhere that seemed like it could hold a secret. My mind was racing, and I felt like I was grasping at straws. Then, I got to the bed. I knelt down and peeked underneath, and that's when I saw it, a small, crumpled bundle, barely noticeable in the shadows. I reached out and grabbed it, and the second I pulled it out, my blood went cold. It was a pair of Jessica's panties, but not just any pair. These were the lacy, barely there ones. The kind she only wore when she wanted to feel sexy, when she wanted to be seen. And they weren't lying there like they'd accidentally fallen off the bed. No, they were crumpled, used, and unmistakably stained. There are some things in life you just know, without question. And this was one of them. I didn't need a lab test. I didn't need to ask anyone. I knew exactly what those stains were, and I knew exactly what they meant, another man's come on my wife's underwear. You don't have to ask how I knew. Every man just knows. It's like a primal instinct, cutting you right to the core. I sat back, holding those panties in my hands, feeling the rage building inside me like molten lava. But as much as I wanted to storm out of that bedroom, throw them in Jessica's face, and tear the house apart, something held me back. Because this wasn't just about betrayal, it was a puzzle. And if I really wanted to get to the bottom of it, I needed to play it smart. So, there I stood, in my own bedroom, heart pounding like a jackhammer, holding undeniable proof that my wife had been sleeping with one of my closest friends. In that moment, two choices flashed in front of me: I could blow up, storm out there, and let all hell break loose, or I could keep my cool, act like nothing was wrong, and find out exactly how long this little circus had been going on and just how deep it ran. I chose the second path. I kept my mouth shut. Because sometimes, when you're staring down the barrel of a loaded gun, the smartest move is to wait for the right time to pull the trigger. When I stepped out of the bedroom, there they were, Jessica and Eddie, huddled close in the living room, whispering to each other like they had some big secret. As soon as they noticed me, they straightened up, putting on a show of casual conversation, like I was supposed to believe they were just chatting about the weather. But I saw it, the jitteriness, the unease. It was like watching two bad actors struggling to remember their lines, knowing the whole act could fall apart at any second. I acted like I didn't notice a thing. Just strolled past them, cool as a cucumber, pretending everything was just peachy, like I hadn't found hard evidence of their betrayal a few minutes earlier. "Coffee?" I asked, forcing a smile that felt like it would crack my face wide open. They both nodded so fast it was almost comical, relieved to be focused on anything that didn't involve me standing there, looking right through them. "Yeah, coffee sounds good," Eddie said, his voice still unsteady. "Sure, honey, that'd be great," Jessica chimed in, her forced cheerfulness grating on my nerves. I turned and headed to the kitchen. The second I was out of their sight, I slipped those tainted panties out of my pocket. My hands were steady, my movements slow and deliberate. I knew exactly what I was going to do, and for some reason, it didn't even feel wrong. It felt right, like I was grabbing back a tiny bit of control in a situation spiraling out of hand. I pulled out a spoon from the drawer and scraped some of that sticky, disgusting residue from the fabric, letting it fall right into the bottom of each of their coffee cups. Just a dab, enough to blend in with the milk and coffee where it would dissolve and disappear. I almost smiled as I watched the black liquid stream into the mugs, washing away any visible trace of what I'd just done. When the coffee was ready, I carried their cups back out, keeping my expression as neutral as possible. I handed one to Eddie and the other to Jessica, and when they took their first sips, I felt this twisted sense of satisfaction. They were so damn clueless, sitting there, sipping away at the evidence of their own betrayal. For a split second, I wondered if maybe they'd notice, that somehow, the taste would give it away. But nope. They just kept drinking, like everything was perfectly normal. "This coffee tastes a little different," Jessica said, frowning slightly as she stared into her cup. "Yeah, it's interesting," Eddie agreed, glancing up at me with this confused expression, like he was trying to figure out what was off about it. I leaned back against the counter, crossed my arms, and grinned. Yeah, I added a secret ingredient. How do you like it? They both hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances before Jessica finally answered. It's good, I guess. I mean, it's definitely different. Yeah, Eddie chimed in, nodding a little too enthusiastically. Something new. I like trying new things. I just watched them, a mix of disgust and satisfaction swirling inside me. Well, that's great, I said, keeping my voice light, almost friendly. I love when people appreciate something unique. They continued to sip, forcing smiles, clearly trying to pretend they were enjoying themselves. I stood there, soaking up every second of their cluelessness. But I knew that was only the beginning. This little stunt was just me getting my bearings, steadying myself for what I needed to do next. After a few moments, I glanced at my watch, as if I suddenly remembered something important. Hey, listen, I gotta step out for a bit, I said casually. Something came up, work stuff. Need to make a couple of calls, maybe run an errand or two. Jessica looked momentarily taken aback but quickly covered it with a smile. Sure, honey. Do what you need to do. Eddie nodded, clearly relieved I was leaving. He probably thought he could slip out the door himself without me suspecting a thing. I walked back to the bedroom to grab my things, though, really, it was just an excuse to return the panties to their hiding spot under the bed. I needed everything to look exactly as it had been, to keep them feeling safe in their little make-believe world. Once I'd tucked the evidence back where it belonged, I left the house, giving them both a quick nod before heading to my car. As I drove away, I knew exactly who I needed to talk to, Paul and Katie. They were the other half of our little circle, friends who'd been around for years. If anyone had any clue about what was going on behind my back, it would be them. And even if they didn't, I needed to start unraveling this whole mess one thread at a time. So, I pulled out my phone and dialed Paul. When he picked up, I didn't waste any time. Hey man, it's Mike. Listen, I need to meet up, both you and Katie. Let's say that cafe near the park in half an hour. Paul didn't skip a beat. Yeah, sure, we can be there. Everything okay? I forced a laugh that probably sounded a lot calmer than I felt. Yeah, just something I need to talk about. See you soon. I hung up and headed to the cafe, my mind already racing with questions and possibilities. If today was the day I started pulling apart the truth, then I had to be ready for whatever I found, because once you start digging into something like this, there's no turning back. I arrived at the cafe before Paul and Katie, which was just as well. I needed a few minutes to gather myself, figure out exactly what the hell I was going to say. I picked one of those tiny round tables, the kind where you barely have room for 2 cups of coffee, let alone enough space to spread out and think. My knee bounced anxiously under the table as I stared out the window, scanning for any sign of them. And then I saw them, Katie with his tall, lean frame, and Katie wearing that concerned look she always had on, like it was permanently etched into her features. They spotted me as soon as they walked in and made their way over. They greeted me with the same familiar smiles, but I felt like I could see right through them. I could see the cracks, the nervousness hiding behind those friendly expressions. Maybe it was because I was already on edge, but something about the way they exchanged those quick, darting glances, it didn't sit right. Hey man, what's going on? Paul asked as they sat down. You sounded, well, urgent. Yeah, is everything okay? Katie chimed in, her voice soft but tense. I didn't waste time dancing around it. I went straight to the point. No, everything is not okay. I came home today and found some things. Things that make me think Jessica's been cheating on me, with Eddie. I watched their reactions closely, expecting shock, maybe denial. But what I saw was something else entirely. They didn't look surprised. If anything, they seemed guilty. Nervous. They exchanged another look, like they were having some kind of silent conversation, and I could practically see the words passing between their eyes. "What?" I barked, my voice louder than I intended. "What's going on? You two know something, don't you?" Paul was the first to crack. He let out a long sigh, running a hand through his hair as he leaned back in his chair like he was gearing up to drop a bomb on me. "Mike, listen, yeah, we know. We've known for a while now." It felt like the floor just dropped out from under me. "What the hell do you mean, you know? How long?" Katie reached out, like she was going to put a comforting hand on mine, but I pulled back, too furious to be touched. "We didn't know how to tell you," she pleaded, her voice almost desperate. We thought they'd stop. We tried talking to them, tried to make them see sense, get them to end it." "How long?" I asked again, my voice barely above a whisper. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room, and I couldn't breathe until I got an answer. Paul stared down at his hands, unable to meet my gaze. "It's been a couple of years, Mike. We didn't want to believe it at first, but, yeah, it's been a while. Years, not months, not weeks, *years star." The word slammed into me like a freight train, and I just sat there, staring at them, struggling to process what they were saying. And then, like a puzzle piece finally falling into place, it all made sense. I understood why they were acting so weird, why they weren't shocked. They'd been in on it, maybe not the cheating itself, but they'd known. They'd known, and they'd kept it from me. "Are you serious?" My voice was trembling now, a mix of anger and disbelief. "You knew this whole time and didn't bother to tell me?" Katie's eyes welled up, glistening with unshed tears, but I didn't care. I didn't want to hear her excuses or her reasons. We thought it was just a phase," Katie stammered. "We even caught them once, red-handed. Rachel, she begged us not to say anything. She swore she'd end it, said it was a mistake, that she wanted to save your marriage." Save my marriage, I practically spat the words out at them, my anger surging. "You really thought you were doing me a favor by lying to my face? By letting me live in some twisted fantasy while my wife was screwing around with my so-called friend?" Paul looked like he was going to be sick. His face was pale, his shoulders slumped. "We didn't know what to do, Mike. It's not like we were okay with it. We tried, we really did, to get them to stop. But we thought telling you would destroy your marriage. And we didn't want that." The rage erupted out of me as I slammed my fist down on the table. The entire cafe went silent as people turned to stare. Let them see what betrayal looks like. "You didn't want to destroy my marriage," I growled, my voice low and dangerous. "You think you were doing me a favor? Letting me walk around like a clueless idiot while my wife and my friend tore my life apart?" Paul lifted his hands like he was trying to calm me down, but I was beyond that now. "We are your friends, Mike," he insisted, his voice strained and desperate. "That's why this was so hard for us. We didn't want to see you hurt." "Well, congratulations," I shot back, my words dripping with sarcasm. "You nailed it. I feel fantastic, Paul. Just fucking great." I pushed back my chair and stood up, fury radiating off me in waves. I was shaking, the betrayal and rage clawing at my insides, threatening to tear me apart. As I stared down at Paul and Katie, two people I once trusted, all I saw now were liars, people who had watched me live in a delusion, all while knowing the truth. "You should have told me," I said, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. "The second you found out, you should have told me." With that, I turned and stormed out of the cafe, leaving them there with their guilt and pathetic excuses. As far as I was concerned, they weren't my friends anymore. They were just two more people who had let me live like a fool while my own life crumbled behind my back. Walking down the street, my mind raced. If Paul and Katie knew, who else was in on this? How many more of my friends had been whispering behind my back, keeping this dirty little secret from me? And just how far had Jessica gone to keep this lie alive? I made it to my car, but as I sat there gripping the steering wheel, all I felt was emptiness, a hollow void that swallowed every last shred of the person I thought I was. For years, I'd been pretending, telling myself our marriage still had a chance, that it was just a rough patch. But that illusion was gone now. Jessica's betrayal had cut deep, ripping away everything I thought we had. But if she wanted to play dirty, I was ready to get in the mud. There was one thing I knew for sure, Jessica would never come clean. Not on her own. And she would never see it coming when I finally decided to fight back, not with the kind of revenge I had in mind. If she wanted to play me like a fool, I'd make her feel what it's like to have your entire world ripped apart. I was going to have an affair, or at least make her believe I was. For the next few days, I made sure to change my behavior around Rachel. I acted more detached, more preoccupied, as if my mind was somewhere else, caught up in something, or someone, she couldn't see. I'd step out of the room to take phone calls, speaking just low enough to make sure she couldn't catch any details of what I was saying. I'd spend extra time on my phone, always with a little grin on my face, like I was enjoying some secret conversation. And when she'd normally try to make some weak attempt to sit with me on the couch, pretending everything was fine, I'd brush her off, telling her I was tired, or that I had something to finish up in the bedroom. Anything to keep her guessing. And it was working. She started to notice. At first, it was just subtle signs, her eyes watching me from the side, questions that seemed casual on the surface but carried that hint of suspicion. "Who were you just talking to?" she'd ask the second I hung up. "Just someone from work," I'd reply, like it was nothing. And it ate her up. I saw it in the way she clenched her jaw, in the way her gaze darted to my phone whenever it buzzed, trying to see who was messaging me. She even started trying to catch a peek over my shoulder while I texted, asking suddenly interested questions about my day, things she'd never cared about before. The tables were turning, and she had no idea. One night, I decided it was time to up the ante. I needed to put something more concrete in her mind, something that would sear into her memory and twist the knife a little deeper. So, I reached out to an old friend, Jessica, a woman I'd known for years and who'd helped me out of a few tough spots before. I gave her the rundown, leaving out the grittier details, and she agreed to help. The plan was simple: we'd have dinner at a restaurant Jessica and I never went to, somewhere unfamiliar, and we'd stage it to look like a date. We wouldn't be too obvious, just close enough to create the impression of intimacy, a setting that would plant a seed of doubt and let Rachel's imagination run wild. I got ready that night as if I was heading to a big event. Shirt tucked in, dark jeans, a splash of cologne, the kind of look I hadn't put on for Jessica in what felt like ages. When I walked out of the bedroom, I saw her reaction right away. Her eyes widened, and she couldn't keep the shock out of her voice. "Going out?" she asked, trying and failing to sound casual. "Yeah," I said, adjusting my watch for effect. "Got dinner plans?" "Oh." She couldn't hide the sharpness in her tone. "With who?" "Just a friend," I replied nonchalantly, not giving her a single thread to pull on. "Someone from work." I could practically hear the gears grinding in her head as I strolled past, grabbing my keys from the kitchen counter. "Don't wait up," I said, letting the door swing shut behind me. Dinner with Jessica went off without a hitch. We laughed, leaned in close over the table, and I made sure to snap a few pictures, photos that looked innocent enough to pass for coworkers, but with just the right amount of chemistry to send Rachel's mind spinning. We made sure to stage every little detail, so anyone watching us would see what we wanted them to see, a couple on the verge of crossing a line. When I finally got home, Jessica was waiting for me, sitting in the dim light of the living room, her eyes red and puffy like she'd been holding back tears. She tried to play it cool, her voice strained as she asked me about my night, about what we'd talked about. I gave her short, clipped responses, never looking up, pretending I was too distracted to care. "Just work stuff," I muttered, pulling off my jacket. She kept pressing, trying to keep it casual, but I could feel the desperation simmering under the surface. "Did you have a good time?" "Yeah, it was fine," I said flatly, scrolling through my phone. The silence between us grew thick, suffocating. Finally, her voice cracked. "Mike, who is she?" But all I felt was a twisted kind of relief, like I'd just won a game I didn't even know I was playing. "Of course, I know," I said calmly. "I've known for a while now, Rachel. And everything I did, every little thing you thought was me cheating, it was just to mess with you, to make you feel what you put me through. You think you were hurting me? I was hurting you right back." She just stood there, stunned, like I'd slapped her. For once, she had nothing to say. No excuses, no angry comebacks, just that look of shock and hurt that told me she never thought I'd be the one to turn the tables. "You know what, Jessica?" I continued, standing up slowly, pushing the chair back from the table. "We should have done this a long time ago. This whole sham of a marriage should have ended years back. I'm done. We're done. I'll pack my things, find another place, and you can stay here. Enjoy it with Eddie, for all I care." By then, tears were streaming down her face, the kind of angry, bitter tears that don't come from sadness, but from sheer frustration, knowing she'd lost, knowing there was nothing left to fight for. But I didn't stick around to watch. I turned away, walked into the bedroom, and grabbed whatever I could fit into a bag. That night, for the first time in years, I felt free. And yeah, it was a painful kind of freedom, but at least it was real. A few weeks later, we started the process, lawyers, paperwork, the whole ugly mess. It was as nasty as you'd expect, but at least it was moving forward. As soon as I could, I found a new place. It wasn't much, a small apartment on the other side of town, but it was mine, and that was all I needed. I cut off contact with everyone from my old life. Eddie, Jessica, Paul, Katie, hell, even their mutual friends who probably knew more than they ever let on. I blocked their numbers, deleted them online, and put as much distance between us as I could. It was like ripping off a band-aid, painful, messy, but necessary. And now here I am, telling this story to whoever's willing to listen. If you've made it this far, you're probably wondering what you'd do in my place. And honestly, I don't know. Maybe you'd have done things differently. Maybe you'd have confronted them right away. Maybe you'd have tried to save your marriage. Or maybe, like me, you'd have burned it all down without a second thought. But one thing I can say for sure is this: be careful. Pay attention to the people you let into your life, and don't ignore those little red flags waving in the background. And if you're lucky enough to have someone who's worth fighting for, hold on tight and don't let go. Because once that trust is broken, there's no going back. Good luck out there. You're going to need it.